day in the beautiful outdoors is something for everyone, whether you're going to the beach, the mountains, the lake, or the forest. But if your primary means of transportation is a wheelchair, or if your mobility is limited in some other way, then getting there can be half the battle, and a set of stairs like these can be more than a little discouraging. Hello, I'm Ed Clark. This time on a special edition of Virginia Outdoors, we're going to look at the outdoor world from the perspective of people with disabilities. If you had lost the use of your arms and legs, could you picture yourself fishing, hunting? How about scuba diving or whitewater rafting or simply playing golf? Well, at the end of this hour, you'll find that the answer is yes. Virginia's outdoors are not only beautiful, they're accessible as well. I hope you'll join us. Nearly 1/4 of all Americans have some type of disability. Now, when we say disability, we actually are talking about many different things. Some problems relate to vision loss, others to hearing loss. There are even a whole set of challenges that relate specifically to age. But during the next hour, we're going to concentrate on challenges that relate to mobility, people who have a hard time getting around. And you know, people in wheelchairs have become an everyday part of life for all of us. But you know, a part of life that we all share that's an important part of our life is sports. We've even brought those two things together with the Paralympic Games, which followed the Olympics by 1 week. During 1996, the Paralympic Games attracted 3,000 athletes from 120 countries. They came here to the United States to compete in 17 full medal sports. But here on Virginia Outdoors, we're concentrating on the sports that take us into the natural world, that get us outdoors. And during the next hour, we're going to see some real innovations in recreation, and we're going to meet a very, very special group of people who pursue their pastimes with a passion. Adaptation is a key concept for all people with disabilities. The Commonwealth of Virginia actually has a state program to help out with this. It's called the Virginia Assistive Technology System. This program helps to identify and locate adaptive technologies and equipment of all types.
It covers the complete range of assistive technology, from very low technology, such as jar grippers that will help someone to open a jar, all the way up to very sophisticated eye-gaze computers, which will allow someone with virtually no movement other than the blink of an eye to control a computer. We try to keep people aware of all the different technology that will help folks in all phases of life, including recreation. Virginia is very fortunate to have a number of rehabilitation engineers, people that will actually help you to fabricate a device that is not available commercially off the shelf. Our information and referral system will help you to identify devices that are already available, but if you're unable to find a solution, then you have a rehabilitation engineer that will specifically modify a device to help you to be able to function.
The rehab engineer's role has always been that of designing, building, developing those products and/or compensatory strategies that help bridge the gaps when somebody has a physical disability that leaves them unable to do something. Many able-bodied people will back out of something having determined that they don't like it or can't do it as well as they thought they would be able to, but at least they had the opportunity to try. And that's what we're trying to do, is to give the disabled community an opportunity to investigate the great outdoors, and be it fishing or boating or biking or whatever, it's been our thrill to be able to work on those devices that allow an individual to get out there and to do those things.
The Virginia Assistive Technology System is all about modifying and customizing equipment to meet the needs of people. But Glenn Waddell has more or less customized himself to meet the exciting sport of windsurfing face to face. Well, maybe I should say he's customized his extended self.
Since I was in my early teens, I had liked the water. Grew up living on the shore, camped in my parents, and bought a little sailboat and started racing one design, and just fell in love with the water and sailed for a number of years, and sailing was kind of my thing. Then around 82, 83, I started looking at windsurfing as a new and emerging sport, and looked a little more exciting than the sailboats. I wanted to go fast. And I bought an old used windsurfer and gave that a try, and that was a lot of fun. Then August of 83, I was in a pretty nasty car accident and had my leg severed. And after 15 days in the hospital, I thought about getting back into life again, going back to work and finishing up school and picking up where I left off. And also thought about sailing. I kind of figured that windsurfing was probably out now, even though I still wanted to do it. So for a long time, I dreamed about windsurfing and tried to put it out of my mind because it was kind of painful not being able to do it. Then probably about 8, 9 years ago, I started dreaming about windsurfing again and wondering if there was a way I could do it. Still thinking there probably wasn't. Finally, in April of '94, I bought a used board, another used board, and took it out right off of Buckrow Beach. And for probably about 4 hours, I sailed and fell and sailed and fell and sailed and fell. Next weekend, I got out and did it again. Next weekend, I did it again. And each time, I fell a little bit less. And so I've gotten a whole lot better now, and now I'm totally hooked, and I've been sailing every month since I started in April of '94. You got to have 2 points of contact on the board for your steering. What I've done is taken just kind of an off-the-shelf leg, so to speak, and there's not too much special about it. No special hardware other than the fasteners, the screws, the bearings, that sort of thing. I've replaced everything with stainless steel or titanium, which are actually pretty easy to get a hold of. But what I had at first was the sand tore it up. Salt water is not too bad. I rinse it off afterwards and always carry a can of WD-40 anyway. But the sand just gets in and grinds out the bearings. And of course, bolts shake loose. I use a lot of Loctite. I guess I like windsurfing because it's such a challenge. And sometimes it's actually scary because it's not like you can go to a bowling alley and you know you're always going to find 10 pins down there. The ball is always going to have 3 holes in it. You put your fingers in it. And the lane is the same width and the same length every time. With windsurfing, that's not the case. There's a lot of frustration because you're waiting for the wind to come up. The wind direction is wrong. It's raining, so you can't see. There's lightning. So you don't always get the chances that you want. And when you do go out 2 or 3 times, you're almost always guaranteed that all those times are going to be totally different. But for somebody who likes a challenge, it's the perfect sport for them. And it's so fast. There are times you actually, it's fairly safe. There are some injuries involved, but as far as losing your life, it's relatively safe. But there are times when you're going so fast over such choppy water and big waves that many times I wonder, am I going to survive this one? And once it's all over, it's a big rush. But it is relatively safe. I've wiped out a number of times during these times when I'm thinking, am I going to die? And as long as you hold on, the water's not very hard. So I remember just a couple weeks ago, I was sailing on a really windy day off the shores of Buckrow, thinking back, looking at some of the other sailors out there, and thinking back 3 years ago when I first started, watching these guys sail so fast and so in control across this really choppy water, and thinking that there was no way I could ever sail that way. But that's okay, I just want to get up and sail around a little bit. So 2 weeks ago, here I was doing the very same thing in the same conditions with the same guys, totally in control. And I just looked up at my sail, looked down at the board, looked at my feet, and thought, I never would have believed I would have done this well. And on top of it, gee, I've got one leg. I've impressed myself. And it really is a good feeling. Makes it all worthwhile. The biggest message I would want to tell anybody, able-bodied, disabled, whatever, is that there's anything that they really want to do, they really can do it. Again, I've had so many people say, well, I don't think I can do it, and I pull up my pant leg and I say, I did it. You can too.
You know, there are a wide variety of water sports in Virginia, and we're in the midst of my favorite, scuba diving. Water's a great equalizer, and once you master a few basic skills underwater, you're virtually weightless. There's a total freedom of movement. Now, it's true that many people with disabilities don't participate in scuba diving in Virginia's waters because the waters tend to be cold, and a lot of people suffer leg cramps or muscle cramps. Sometimes hypothermia is a risk if you can't feel your extremities. But we're actually here indoors with the folks at Kathy's Scuba in Harrisonburg, Virginia, at the Bridgewater College pool. And we're learning the skills that people will be able to take not only to the quarries and ocean waters of Virginia, but perhaps to the warm, balmy waters off Bermuda, Florida, and other exotic places in the world. There are more than a dozen places in Virginia that are certified to work with divers with disabilities. And if you're interested in my favorite sport, there's certainly a place in Virginia for you. Let's see what it looks like underwater.
My disability fades away because my legs just float behind me. You know, they're not a hindrance at all. There's no wheelies, no curbs to jump. You know, I mean, just cruising.
You want to try something different and get out of your element, this is the way to do it. I mean, I felt totally out of my element, but in control and very supported. Everybody was around, and I didn't feel like I was going to be in big trouble at any big time.
Both Chris Grandel and Andy Keithley are taking part in the Discover Scuba program, an innovative way for anyone to explore the basics of scuba diving without spending a lot of money. It's perfect for those just getting started, or in Andy's case, returning to the water.
My logbook, my dive logbook is pretty thin, and I'd like to rectify that, so that's why I'm getting involved again.
The Discover Scuba program is set up for people to try scuba the first time without getting involved with the financial cost of an entire class. It's for anyone ages 12 and older, and it gives them the opportunity to understand the very basics of scuba and to get in a pool and actually try it out and see if they like it before they would get involved in taking a course. Many possibilities with diving. I was going to say, people still come up to me. I've been in business here in Harrisonburg for 14 years, and it's like, what are you doing here? Well, just because we're here in the Shenandoah Valley doesn't mean that we don't ever go anywhere else.
The program is held at the Bridgewater Pool throughout the year. It starts with a short video before everyone suits up and heads for the water.
I'm getting water in my nose.
You're grinning.
I'm what?
You're grinning.
I'm getting water in my nose.
Yeah, but I was going to say, anytime you smile,
Yeah?
you crack your smile line, and it lets a little bit of water run.
Okay.
Working with the people with disabilities is totally different than working with people without them, being that you let them know what they need to accomplish and ask them how best they can do it, because they know what they can do and how to do it and whatever. Instead of using fins, we used webbed gloves do special adaptations with equipment, weight them special ways and whatever, because their needs are different.
I think that these people are incredible, the way they're trying to mainstream the water for us, especially since me without this chair is just a wonderful experience. You know, I mean, I can keep up with somebody kicking with their legs underwater. It's we're pretty much equaled out there. So I really applaud anybody that's helping handicapped individuals into the water.
Now stick your face under, just right here. We're not going anywhere.
At first it's like very confining. You know, you really feel the pressure of the water. But as you start to breathe and think about, well, I'm okay, and it gets better then. My big problem in the water is not having movement of my legs. I usually walk on braces and crutches, and I want to be able to touch something, so I found myself wanting to grasp at the bottom.
Entering and exiting the water can be the most difficult.
Yeah, it was. I really hated because,
Especially, I mean, at the pool, it's one thing. It's really very simple. I mean, they can manipulate themselves into the water and usually get themselves back out. On a rocking boat in the ocean, it's a totally different story. They have to depend on us to be able to get them into the water, which still isn't as difficult. It's just put them in a position and throw them in, push them in, you know, shove them off the boat.
I haven't really run into any barriers. I've been injured for a while, so I'm used to asking, if need be, complete strangers to help me out, and everybody always just really happy to oblige. So anytime I needed to be lifted over a stump or something to get to the water, or you know, even non-accessible dive boats are pretty roomy, so I haven't had any difficulty getting in there, and they just, you know, throw you off the boat. You wouldn't believe what you see underwater. It is incredible. I mean, the fish are just lit up. You know, there's luminescent fish. There's bright fish. You know, I've dove a lot around coral, and that is just more gorgeous than any forest you're going to see. You know, and everything's alive. You know, you can chase after shrimp or fish or lobsters, and you know, it's just incredibly beautiful down there.
More and more people with physical disabilities are learning that there are many benefits to an outdoor lifestyle. Physical rewards from overcoming challenges, and many emotional rewards from just the chance to be close to nature. Our next activity is going to move us inland to the Birkdale Golf and Country Club in Chesterfield County. Now, if you'd like to try your hand at golf and don't have a clue where to begin, perhaps the place to start is at Sheltering Arms, a nonprofit facility near Richmond. Sheltering Arms has one of the widest varieties of clinics and programs for people with disabilities, teaching them that there are many opportunities for outdoor recreation. They have clinics in everything from canoeing to horseback riding and gardening, and yes, even golf. Now, you don't need to start by buying a lot of expensive equipment. The clinics are very inexpensive, running from about $4 all the way up to $15. They're all taught by certified therapeutic recreation specialists. These specialists can recommend adaptive equipment and modifications to the games and activities that can let almost anyone participate. If you have a physical disability, you're invited to attend and try your hand.
When I was walking, I wasn't playing golf. I got injured, and I've been injured since June 1980, and I just took up golf 3 years ago. I would have never thought that I would be able to play golf. In fact, I wasn't even interested in golf up to 3 years ago. And now I got my own clubs and everything, and we usually have a golf clinic every Monday to practice. So, and I go to the driving range on my own to hit the ball.
All right. Okay.
My brothers are all golfers, and once I found out that they were having golf clinics at Sheltering Arms, I jumped at the chance just to be able to go out and play with them. The first clinic that I heard about was here at Birkdale, and I came out here and borrowed some clubs from another fella, and basically started from there, from scratch. Never had hit a golf ball before, and I got hooked.
There it is. Great shot. Roll over to the pin.
We started the whole concept of the community recreation program about 5 years ago, and we started the program with an adaptive golf clinic. A lot of our programs, we strongly encourage family and friend participation. Part of that is because the normal recreation pattern is to recreate with friends and family. So a lot of our tournaments, our golf tournaments and our bowling tournaments, are developed in a foursome. So there's 2 folks with disability and 2 without disability. So it strongly promotes the integration of the 2 with family and friends.
That's what happens when you
The way it's set up now, we usually play like with 2 able bodies, 2 disabled, and we usually designate someone to putt for us because you can't take the regular wheelchairs on the green. Since I've been participating in the tournaments, the staff and everything, they work with us, and they're more than friendly. And like this year, they have these 2 golf carts, and I'm looking forward to the next tournament because I will be able to use this cart to putt, and that makes a big difference.
Basically, the golf cart is something like you'd see in a grocery store, like a U-Crops. It has the capability of putting a golf bag in the front. It's like a regular golf cart, except the bag is strapped into the front of it. Has hand controls, so either one hand or the other can use it. Seats swivel, so when they pull up to the ball, they can swivel their seat around and hit their ball and continue on.
The program, it really has given people the opportunity to learn a new skill or activity or participate in something that they never thought they could participate in. A lot of the folks that we work with, of course, need adaptive recreation and leisure equipment, and it's very expensive. So if that equipment's not available for them, they can't participate in the activity. So by us being able to provide those adaptations and suggestions and the equipment for them, they're able to pursue things that they probably would not have been able to do. So it's been exciting to see people return to activities that they enjoy and see them learn new things.
To me, it's the enjoyment of playing against other people that have injuries similar. To spend a day out on the course, and you get to meet a lot of interesting people.
I would say come on out, even if you don't think you'd like it, come on out and try it. You might. I did. Everybody that I know that's tried it has liked it and plays as much as they can.
Great shot. Foot from the hole.
For some folks, a quiet afternoon paddle on a slow-moving piece of water is a perfect day. But for other folks, they're looking for a shot of pure adrenaline. And that's what brings them to the falls of the James River in the heart of downtown Richmond for whitewater rafting. It's hard to believe that right here in downtown Richmond, we find Class 3 and Class 4 rapids. And that means a thrill a minute. But you know, one question that goes through everyone's mind as they get into one of these rafts is, what happens if I fall out of the boat? And that question takes on some extra dimensions if you happen to be a person with disabilities. Now, if you think security in the boat means being strapped in or tied down, the Richmond Raft Company is here to tell you you're in for a surprise.
Paddling is the other big thing that keeps you in the boat. Majority of the people that fall out of the boat are not paddling. They're doing what's called an air brace. Paddles up there in the air, waving it around. It really draws attention to them as they're falling out of the boat. Again, if you're guiding,
I'm the president of a group called RAD Sports. It's Richmond Athletes with Disabilities. We've been in Richmond for about 4 years now, and we're a local chapter of the Disability America Sports Foundation, and it's been the 3rd year we've done a raft trip with Richmond Raft Company.
One of my river guides, Pierce Brinkley, who's an excellent carpenter and engineer, designed a floor rig which we feel is unique, and we've passed our information on to other outfitters that actually holds the chair in place, keeps everyone at about the level they need off the water for good paddling. And then it was just a mix of all three, between a commercial industry wanting to see it happen and here locally.
By them having the wheelchairs, they have some frames of old wheelchairs fastened down to some boards, and they put that in the raft itself. And that was my main concern. I was trying to figure out how they was going to do it, basically by you leaving your wheelchair, on land. And the transfer and everything went along smoothly, so it wasn't no problems.
What needs to be done is the wheelchair itself, the sport chair, just needs to be anchored and firm and put in such a position so they can still get a good paddling motion. And that's that, and then the other factor just be transportation to and from the put-ins. And the James River Park system here in Richmond has come a long way for providing access for all sorts of people in all ages and various degrees of mobility. It's really come a long way in that aspect, so things are falling in place.
Oh yes, it'll be my first time, so I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know what to expect, so I'm gonna just go out there and see what's going on. Enjoyed it. I enjoyed the coming down the high rafts, and I'm looking forward to it next year. But when I first thought about it, I had some hesitation about it. But once you get out there and you feel comfortable, then you be looking for the rapids.
Oh, just awesome. I don't know how to explain it. It's real freeing, and it's nice to have a challenge and something different than just every day, sitting around doing stuff.
Well, at times it gets pretty interesting. You're just holding on for dear life. It wasn't really too rough today, but there were times when, we were bracing and then he wanted us to paddle at the same time, and I was a little bit overwhelmed, but everything worked out. Everybody stayed in the boat. It was a great time.
Trips such as this really enable you to get out of your wheelchair and experience life to its fullest, and I think that it really builds your self-confidence and enables you to live life. And it's it's a little risk-taking somewhat, but I think everybody enjoyed themselves and had a great time.
Because it was outside, and I like to be outside and to do things that aren't like necessarily in the chair. It's just fun to get out of the chair and, like leave it on the shore and just sort of forget about it and just hang out and swim, and just thought it'd be kind of exciting.
If you're in a wheelchair, just don't let the wheelchair stop you from doing anything. It's some things that you can do. You might can't do it like you was when you was walking, but there's still some things you could do.
I would say, don't knock it till you tried it. I'd challenge anybody to try it. It's really fun.
I think newly injured people need to quickly assimilate with the regular population and start realizing all the different activities that are out there, all the wonderful possibilities there are. I think once you limit yourself, it's a self-defeating situation. So I think that when you start twisting that around and thinking all the things you can do, and there's 10 things you can't do and a million things you can, so focus your energies and your positive feelings on those things. And I think rafting is one of those among many other sports that are available to us. So I think that for a newly injured person, there's a lot to live for, and go for the gusto.
Well, we certainly couldn't leave water sports without talking about fishing. In fact, there are millions of Americans that participate in the angling arts every year, and that includes many people with disabilities. It's become so popular that, in fact, there's a whole series of fishing tournaments across the country specifically for anglers with disabilities. It attracts hundreds of people every year. But you know, you don't need to fight a crowd like that if you want to get out and wet a line. Right behind me, there's a fishing pier right here at Smith Mountain Lake that's specifically for anglers with disabilities. It's fully accessible. In fact, here at Smith Mountain Lake, there's also a boat ramp that's fully accessible and a boat tour of the lake that provides roll-on, roll-off access. Now, Smith Mountain Lake is particularly famous for the 40-pound stripers that hang out here. Now, those stripers hang in deep water, and sometimes it's hard to reach that deep water from a fishing pier. But this 112-foot pier provides the angler with access to the deep water where the big ones live.
You know, I have people call me and say, hey man, you want to go fishing today? I said, well, yeah, that'd be great. It probably started with a rec therapist at Woodrow Wilson Rehab Center. First few days I was there, which was about 6 weeks after my injury, you know, he showed me a fishing rod, and I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do with it? He said, well, we're going to teach you how to cast it again. So I sat in the lunchroom and cast across the room. And it was very awkward. Sometimes it would go way over here, or right down to the ground. But I seen right then, I'm like, well, you know, a little practice and a little more coordination, hey, this is very possible. This is a great thing here. I know last year when Brian called me about this, and I knew right then it was going to open up a lot of doors for people that would love to get down here and just throw a hook in the water, you know.
Well, you're seeing futation of about 10 years of work and about 3 different managers. And it's taken that long to acquire funding. And it is a 112-foot long fishing pier with a 70-foot tee on it that provides deep water access for fishing. But it is fully accessible for all.
Access that gives a fisherman a real shot at a diverse array of species.
At full pond, it's about 12 to 15 feet deep at the pier. Now, with a short cast, you're in about 30 feet of water. So you can access all the different species of fish that we have here, which would be striped bass, largemouth, little bluegills. We saw them swimming around, and people do enjoy catching them, catfish. So it is a very used facility and one that's paying great dividends.
The design is great. This is the first time that I've seen this, and they did a very good job. The alternating high and low railings, which with the high railing it would be very difficult for me to cast over. So with the low railing and plus the opening at the bottom where my feet and foot plates can extend through where I can get closer to the rails. A lot of thinking I can see went into the design of this. Very good. And a shady spot also.
The park is 1,250 acres, and it encompasses 16 miles of shoreline on Smith Mountain Lake. And we have 3 major peninsulas that stick out on the lake. One, we have the swimming picnic area on, and this area is tucked into that cove. It's the boat ramp and of course the fishing pier. Then we have an overnight use area which has a campground, and now we're building cabins in that area. And then the last peninsula, which is in the middle of the two, provides the visitor center area. So it's spread out nicely. We have 1,200 acres. A lot of it is undeveloped, and it provides conservation at the same time.
Using some Yankee ingenuity, Barry and a rehab engineer designed a device to help reel in the line.
These are used every rehab facility around the world. You can find them anywhere. They're called a universal cuff. So what we do with it is put it on. I mean, these are things that are used for everything: eating, brushing teeth, using any kind of utensil that a person might need during the day. And it's got a little slot, as you can see right there. And what we do is once I cast out, I just slide that right up onto the little bolt shaft there, and reeling is just so easy. So it's very simple.
Providing quality recreational experiences is a large part of our job, and certainly this facility that we focused on today, the fishing pier, does help us provide that quality experience for everyone, and that includes the disabled.
There's so much out there, you know, no matter what the sport that the injured individual is looking to participate in, that somewhere or another there is someone that can give you information on this and help you get back into whatever you want to do. Hey, you know, it's pretty simple to get back out there again and do these things.
Providing that for the disabled is also a big reward, because they don't always have accessibility in other areas that they travel in, and certainly they do in this state park.
In addition to fishing, one of the oldest and most traditional of all outdoor sports is hunting. This is an accessible hunting blind, one of 12 like it, here at the New Kent Forestry Center near Providence Forge, Virginia. There are actually 24 blinds in all, 12 for the hunters and 12 for their assistants, who will give them help getting into the blind if they need it, and then help getting their deer out of the woods. Now, like all Virginians who wish to hunt, people who have disabilities still need a hunting license. Now, for most of us, a privilege to hunt and fish for a lifetime will cost us $250. But if you have proof of a permanent disability, your license will cost you $5. That gives you access to facilities like this, lets you get into restricted areas, and gives you the privilege to shoot from a vehicle, a practice prohibited for most hunters. The Department of Game and Inland Fisheries in your community or in Richmond can give you full details on these special programs. Now, recently at our visit to the New Kent Forestry Center, we had the opportunity to talk with some hunters who have been involved in the development of this program and who enjoy its results.
Just be ready. We normally, in the mornings we come in, and these gentlemen will agree. We see a lot of deer up here on the high ground, and as we're coming into his facility in the mornings, the deer normally leave and going down the swamp. So hopefully we can catch a few up on high ground. And if not, we'll have to venture on down the swamp and get a little muddy today. But that's okay. So, anyway, if there are any questions, gentlemen. All right.
Let's go.
Let's go do it.
Sounds good.
This place is, I guess the most special thing about it is that the people here contacted us and was willing to work with us, get our ideas on what we needed to make it accessible and work and to put on good hunts for us.
Like I said, we'll be driving this way. Your next stand's on around the bend here. You're far enough away. You can shoot wide open. We'll put your vehicle in the little parking area. We'll be, all right, let's check on you in about an hour.
Okay.
All right.
Before New Kent Forestry Department invited us in, hunting just was not available. You know, as a new injury, when I first came to the VA hospital, and I worked as a recreation therapist with the VA, and we sort of go through the same things, had to go through the same things other new injuries go through. And when they're lying in bed, they have a tendency to come up with a lot of perceptions of what life is going to be like from a wheelchair standpoint. And they're faced with a lot of architectural barriers and attitudinal barriers. And while you're confined to the bed, you compact this large file that's titled, "I cannot do." And included in that file is hunting.
Last year we had a new injury that never been out. And he said, I really didn't think I'd ever get to do anything like this again. Well, that means a lot. You know, you see a new injury, now he knows that he can get out there and be with the boys and do stuff. And girls, excuse me. So I think that's important. Killing a deer doesn't matter anything to me. Just being out here and being with the guys and telling lies and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm a hunter myself and hunted all my life, and I pretty much realized what it would be like if I had to give that up now, or I didn't have facilities available to use. And it really means a lot to me to come out and see these guys. The camaraderie is just great. They get around, they laugh, have a big time. And it's really just, even if they don't kill a deer, it's a great experience for them. And that's probably the most meaningful thing to me.
The camaraderie is an equal part of hunting, just to be accepted. And it's probably the greatest fear of new injuries coming into the medical centers these days. They're just scared to death of what life might have in store for them. Will they ever marry? Will they have children? Will they have a job? Will they be accepted? Will they have self-worth? Will they have importance or purpose in life? And for these young kids coming out of military, 19, 20 years of age, a future ahead of them, and sometimes they perceive that they have lost everything. But it's once they go through the experience of hunting and you come back into the medical center, I've heard many a physician say that's the best prescription I could have ever written, that day pass to go hunting. The patients get out of bed sooner, they attend to therapies, they work harder, their eyes are brighter, they're much more alert, all of a sudden they become alive. Last year I brought two new patients out, and a nursing assistant were with them, and they were on a stand a little bit down here below us. And they were looking down the road expecting a deer to come along the road as an automobile would. And their nursing assistant whispered, you know, there's two deer right behind us. And these two deer just easily creeped up on them and was just amazed at whatever these people were doing here in his stand. So one said, on a count to three, you know, we'll turn and shoot, because the deer was behind them. And as soon as they turned, the deer took off. And both were so surprised that neither one got a shot off. And so we've been teasing them all year about who was out there trying to kiss the deer. And we have bragging rights. Whoever gets the biggest deer of that day have the right to brag for the rest of the year about how good they are, you know, at hunting. And it's amazing how much bigger the deer gets once we get back to the hospital. You know, it's a humongous 25 rack tearing trees down, tromping through the woods.
If you get a chance to go anywhere, whether it's here or anywhere else, to know that you can do it, it's enjoyable, it's a good time, and I don't know, it just gets you out of the house. Gets you away from your wife and stuff like that.
For people with physical disabilities, access to outdoor recreation is a year-round concern. And if downhill skiing is something you're interested in, Virginia's the place for you. The Americans with Disabilities Act, known as the ADA, was passed in 1990. It requires reasonable access and accommodations for people with disabilities in both publicly owned and privately owned establishments which are open to the public. Privately owned Massanutten and Wintergreen resorts provide much more than simple reasonable accommodations. They're fully accessible.
We work with individuals who are physically challenged, blind skiers, individuals in wheelchairs, amputees, pretty much anybody who wants to learn how to ski can come here, and we have the necessary equipment and instructors that can adapt the lesson so that they can go out and enjoy the sport of skiing. Depending upon the needs of the individual, there's a lot of different assistive technology that can make the sport more accessible to them. From behind you, go ahead and push towards me. There you go, good. Now bring them up, good.
There are a lot of people who have been told all their lives they can't do things. They've been excluded from areas. There are things that the entire family does that they can't do. People who up until now, entire families would be skiing, and this person might be sitting in the lodge. And we get them included in the family. We get them to where they can participate in the family on a regular recreational activity, and it does wonders for both the individual and the family. And that's, without a doubt, the most rewarding thing for us when we see that happen.
I have a 10-year-old, and it's wonderful to get out on the hill and ski with my son, Andrew. It's a nice feeling to be able to ride the chairlift with him and get out there on the hill and get out of your chair and have a lot of fun. I think it's exciting to start a new program like this because there is a tremendous feeling of freedom and exhilaration that you get when you're out on the hill. There are a lot of people who can do this that just aren't aware of it. Most of everyday living for a person that has a physical challenge is centered around adaptive strategies anyway. Your living is an adaptive strategy. You come up with adaptive strategies for your own daily living, and we can do that now for skiing.
We can adapt equipment. We can adapt teaching styles. We can get anybody skiing down a hill, almost anybody totally independently. Everybody, some people may be tethered, some people may be helped on and off the lift, but there isn't a human being out there that can't enjoy the sport of skiing, in my view. The most difficult obstacle is when people say, I can't do this. When they have this attitude that they can't, they've experienced so much failure in their life, it's not for them. And I can tell you that we've had people who seem to be the most disabled. If you looked at them, you can't imagine how these people can do anything. They're that disabled, yet they can ski independently. They love to ski independently because they've been shown that they can do it, and they do it.
The hardest thing is overcoming the initial fear of getting out there and looking down that hill, because it's a ways down. So you try not to look at it all the way down the hill, but I remember when I first got out of my wheelchair and into the monoski, I thought, what have I done? But you're already halfway down. You're sitting pretty close to the snow, and when you fall over, it's just a matter of standing back up again.
Yeah, we're ready to roll. Okay, let's go forward, straight, to your right a bit, the other right. There you go. Straight ahead.
I haven't always been blind, and I'm a diabetic, and so I've got to be careful of my stress level. But I thought, well, why not ask a question or two? I mean, how do they do this for blind skiers? I'd heard all sorts of methods. And Michael said, well, we put electrodes on your heads and zap you. And I thought, oh, isn't that interesting? And the next thing I knew, everybody was laughing. I was really naive. I thought, well, it sounded better than being flung around on the end of a rope, but that's not how they do it at all. You're just sort of thrown out there and somebody screams at you, left, right, and hope you can follow that. It was this incredible experience, and it was exhilarating. It was euphoric. So I think that's why I'm continuing to ski, because it's such an experience.
Oh yeah, it feels great.
She's doing fantastic. Has a lot of function for the level of injury that she has. She's really using her outrigger well. She's getting good lean into the turns, real dynamic. She's got good control. She's doing fantastic. All right, let's go get a couple more runs. I think that we probably benefit as much or more than they do, because it's certainly a tremendous reward to be out there with them. And when you see somebody who has had limited function for one reason or another get out and experience the exhilaration of being more independent and participating in activities either with their friends or their family, I think that's one of the greatest benefits. Being able to socialize and do something on an equal par as somebody else is what's really nice about it.
After that first run, everything changed. It's not so much what I can't do, but it's more now things I can do. And rather than concentrating or worrying too much about what you can't do anymore, it's nice to be able to feel, hey, you know, I can do this.
We're having a blast. I tell you, I'll be tired tonight.
Camping is certainly one of the oldest and most popular ways to get into the out of doors and enjoy being close to nature. But for people with disabilities, that hasn't always been easy. In fact, many people had to purchase very expensive, customized recreational vehicles just to have the security of knowing that when they traveled, they'd find the facilities that they need. But more and more campgrounds on public land are now providing those facilities. Our state parks, our national forests are redesigning and building new campgrounds that have accessibility in mind. We're here at Foster Falls in the New River Trail State Park, where a primitive campground is going to be built in this area behind me. Restrooms are being designed to provide access to people in wheelchairs. Elevated cooking stands will be available, and tent pads will be built up off the ground so that people in wheelchairs can erect their tents and have easy access to this beautiful river. This is a site designed for everyone. The New River Trail is one of Virginia's most unusual trails. It's also the longest stretch of trail which is accessible along its entire length to people with disabilities. Once the New River Trail State Park acquires the property it needs to close a 1-mile gap in this trail, it will extend for 57 miles from Pulaski all the way to Galax, and every mile is accessible. The trail follows an old rail bed, it's covered with cinders, and park personnel recommend that you use a sport model chair, and yet everybody can enjoy the New River Trail. If you're here for the long distance ride or just for a pleasant afternoon, there's something here for you.
State Parks is highly committed to providing accessible recreation. All our state parks are currently or have done changes to facilities to make them accessible. The trail itself in certain locations would be what we would call challenge level 2. It's pretty much cinder ash coated with number 10 stone. It is generally smooth, can be hard, some places would be soft. It's dusty in some areas, but it is fully accessible by wheelchair. And we're currently into our 10th year of a 20-year master plan. So we're starting to phase in toilet facilities and water facilities that will be hardened in instead of being like a porta-john is now. And they will be fully accessible. And now we're looking at camping. Currently at the trail, we have some guided horseback rides that have been done for people with disabilities. We have some people locally that come out in electric wheelchairs. That seems to be pretty popular. They get out to some of the stops and look at the rivers and stuff. We don't have a whole lot, but we advertise in our state park brochure. I think it's gaining in popularity. Once people find out it is accessible and just how accessible it is, we do get some more people. We've had probably more requests in the last year since we've opened Foster Falls because now people can get to the river. And so it's been a big boost for that.
The New River Trail is open to horseback riders, hikers, and bikers. It's wonderfully quiet as it takes you through the lush woodlands of the Jefferson National Forest. Just outside Charlottesville, the Ivy Creek Natural Area has an accessible trail that winds through 3/4 of a mile of varied habitat, perfect for a leisurely stroll.
Well, the Ivy Creek Foundation is a nonprofit, membership-supported, not public-supported, foundation that manages the Ivy Creek Natural Area for the city and county. It's a city-county jointly owned park that is reserved for the quiet observation of nature, for recreational walking, which means that there are other activities are prohibited, unlike the other parks. The accessible loop trail was built in July of 1995 to complete an existing trail that led up to the barn, so that there was a trail that started and ended again in the parking lot. What we particularly like about the accessible trail is that it passes through a variety of habitat. So you have open areas, it passes by fields where you'll get a distinct kind of wildlife, particularly bird populations. Then it goes through the quiet area, which is a nice place to stop, as I mentioned. And then it goes into the woods, and I think that's the really special part of this trail, is the woods experience.
Coming from the living in the country area, I'm an outdoorsman, and then when I got hurt, it sort of limited me from spending a lot of time on the outdoors. Now that this trail offers individuals, disabled individuals with limited mobility, it offers them the opportunity to get out and to enjoy the nature the way that they've already wanted to, always wanted to participate in doing.
Well, I'm originally from West Virginia, and living in that part of the country, I'm accustomed to no concrete. And that's one of the pleasures about coming out on the trail. I feel closer to things that are natural. Being out here, it tells me that I can take my time.
Oh, I would definitely encourage individuals to get out here to enjoy this trail, because once they get out here, they'll see a lot of the things that they've been missing.
Well, that will do it for this special edition of Virginia Outdoors. we've traveled from one corner of the state to the other to learn about some of the activities in which people with disabilities can and do participate. Now, of course, there are many activities that we simply didn't have time to cover. But during the last hour, I hope that you've been enlightened, encouraged, and maybe even inspired by some of the people that we've met. I know that I have. I hope you'll join me again next time when we once more visit the beautiful and unique and accessible Virginia outdoors.
For more information on the activities featured in this program, send a self-addressed stamped envelope to Virginia Outdoors, 298 Port Republic Road, Harrisonburg, Virginia, 22801. To obtain a VHS video cassette copy of this program, please send $30 to WVPT at 298 Port Republic Road in Harrisonburg, 22801, or call 540-434-5391. Please refer to show number 402 when placing your order.